What is up everyone, today I'll be showcasing a solid squad for the Ultra League running Shadow Dragonite, Galarian Weezing and Tapu Fini. I ran this team for 5 sets right when Ultra League went live and I went 18-7 with this squad. So it did very well and I can definitely recommend it to you too. Shadow Dragonite is just a great lead. The current Ultra League meta as the dragon fighting coverage pretty much has play versus anything except for fairy types. So to cover for those fairy types, we have a poison like Galarian Weezing in the back and Tapu Fini, which generally is a neutral matchups versus the fairies. If you don't have Galarian Weezing or Tapu Fini, there's a lot of replacements for these like Elisabeth, Jellicent, or steel types like Steelix, Registeel, and Cobalion work as well. Anyway, we're gonna head into these battles, starting off with game number 1, where I led into a Whimsicott. An Ultra League Whimsicott. And this is quite the core breaker, but Whimsicott is lacking some stats, so I felt like Tapu Fini at least had some play into it, so I switched it in and Grass Knot did loads. Already brought my Tapu Fini into the red. My opponent brings out the Shadow Swampert now. This is actually great for me because I don't want Galarian Weezing to see it. I was very much considering over farming here and tried to go for a Moonblast to threaten the knockout. However, I decided it's better to just get a little bit of chip in, because Dragonite still takes a lot from these Hydro Cannons, so getting a full farm down probably wasn't possible, so I'd rather just chip the Swampert already and just get the farm down now that the Swampert is at low HP, and hopefully my Galarian Weezing can take care of whatever's in the back too. I actually opt to switching Galarian Weezing here just to get one Fairy Wind of energy head start versus whatever they have in the back. Ends up being a Shadow Charizard. And Shadow Charizard is quite fragile. So 2 Brutal Swings might knock him out already. It's going to be a bait game though. And luckily I get the first bait call correct because it ends up being a Blast Burn, which I shield. Go for the Brutal Swing now. That does a decent chunk, but not quite 50%. So I am kind of scared here that 2 won't knock out after farm down. Gonna hit the second now. Brings him deep into the red. It's gonna be a bait game. I shield this move up, thinking it's another Blast Burn. Is it gonna be though? No, it's the Dragon Claw. That is bad. I go into my Dragonite now to do as much Dragon Breath damage as possible. Unfortunately, the Charizard survives though. It is still one or two wing attacks away from the next Blast Burn though. So I bait the Whimsicott. They take the bait. I can go for the overheat now. This will knock out the Whimsicott, but can I farm down the Charizard? It comes in. 1 Fairy Wind is not enough, and unfortunately they get to the move. We have a little recording issue, but yeah, it ends up being a Blast Burn, and I lose with 1 HP remaining on the Charizard. That was heartbreaking after such a difficult lead and almost coming back from that, but yeah, it was a tough game, so GG there. That got way closer than it should have been, probably. Okay, Nidoqueen lead. This is an annoying lead, to be honest. A Shadow Dragonite does take a lot of damage from Poison Fangs, and you actually have to shoot the first one. This is one of those matchups where regular Dragonite's probably a bit more comfortable. You could definitely consider running regular Dragonite as well, but I found overall Shadow Dragonite, that extra damage is really nice. Anyway, after they throw a Poison Fang, and I throw my Dragon Claw, I switch to Weezing actually, because at this health an overreach should knock out. So I force a shield with the Brutal Swing. They switch out 1 away from their next Poison Fang, and that is important information to remember. They're into their Licky now, which is interesting. It's basically like Snorlax, but with different coverage moves. Usually runs like Shadow Ball, which is pretty interesting in this current meta with like Giratinas roaming around and other ghost types. We're gonna go into Dragonite now. I figured that Galarian Weezing will probably be okay in the back, seeing as how most Nidoqueens come with Umbreon and their best, or with Dark types mainly, and their best Weezing answer was this Licky. So I'm gonna save an overheat on my Weezing, bring in the Tapu Fini now. Luckily, Licky, unlike Licky Tongue, doesn't have a grass move, so it's only a Shadow Ball. Does do a decent chunk, but not as much as a Power Whip would have done in Great League. Now, remember, the Nidoqueen is 1 Poison Jab away from their Poison Fang, so they didn't want to bring in their Nidoqueen, because then I just get to the surf and knock them out. So I brought out their Scraft to eat all my energy, and then bring in the Queen to Poison Fang me down. But I'm super fine with this. Remember, my Weezing still isn't overheat loaded. So after I let my Tapu Fini go down, we go into Weezing, we get off the overheat at 1 HP, and that's a great game. Alright, next lead Alolan Sandslash. Now this is a very very tough one. I kind of changed what I did in this lead throughout the day. I think when I started, I switched in Weezing into that matchup, but I think switching in Tapu Fini is the better move, as in order for Weezing to be able to one-shot on Alolan Sandslash, shields have to be down. So what I really recommend you do versus Alolan Sandslash leads is bring in the Tapu Fini, try to get shields down, and then you should be able to either superpower or overheat the Alolan Sandslash later. It's still a very tough lead though, as Alolan Sandslash has Rias play versus all three of her Pokemon, but it's definitely doable. This game, we got a shield with the Moonblast. This would have been a little better if I baited with Surf, because then I might have been able to threaten another Moonblast. Instead, this Giratina just has so much health now, which I still have to get rid of. I decided to bring in my Galarian Weezing. A reason for that is that I don't really need health on my Galarian Weezing in order to beat the Alolan Sandslash, because the Shadow Claws are not going to be that threatening. The thing I should really be worried about is the Drill Run, so I really need shields for that, and I think my Galarian Weezing is able to take the charge moves better than my Shadow Dragonite, which I might have had to shield once or twice, which would have been far from ideal. Anyway, Galosapod comes in, bring out Dragonite now. I'm gonna let this move go, because I know at this point the Alolan Sandslash is still gonna outpace me to 2 Ice Punches before I get to 2 of my charge moves. And now it's pretty much gonna be a bait game. I'm quite sure I do reach Dragon Claw plus Superpower, and it's gonna be a bait game. I go for a Dragon Claw, and unfortunately they let it go, and that just pretty much secures the loss, unless I'm able to take the shield here and bring this down into a range where my Galarian Weezing can fast move it down. Bring it in now. Gonna shield the first Ice Punch. They have 2 loaded already though, pretty much. Actually, I'm still gonna let this go, because at this point my Weezing's health is so low that I definitely can't farm down the Alolan Sandslash and also get to a move versus the Galosapod. Anyway, we see another Alolan Sandslash lead. Again, I switch into the Tapu Fini. They're staying in, getting a little bit of chip damage with the Duran, and then they bring in their Galosapod. Galosapod can take Moonblast quite nicely, so likely not gonna see a shield there, which is fine, because if you can't get shields with your Tapu Fini, you just want to bring their switch in into a range where you can farm it down with either Weezing or Dragonite. I actually stop water gunning here because I want as many Dragon Breaths in as possible versus Galosapod, so that I can farm up to a superpower with my Dragonite. Don't quite have it, but at least I'm now close enough to the superpower to where the Alolan Sandslash shouldn't outpace me. I should get there before they do. Again, I'm gonna go for the bait. At this point, I feel like this is a very safe bait, and I want to save as much energy as possible. So I don't want to throw superpower there. Just go for the bait, and they do shield it up. Out comes Virizion now, and this is amazing for the Galarian Weezing. We can just go straight for the overheat. I am not expecting them to shield, and if they do want to shield, that's fine, because then their Alolan Sandslash is shieldless, and my Weezing should be able to overheat it quite easily. But yeah, they do let it go. They throw a Leaf Blade, but at this point the game is pretty much over. I have 2 shields. They have a little bit of energy on their Alolan Sandslash, but they wouldn't outpace me. So opponent tries to call a bait, but I didn't bait. I went for the overheat. That knocks him out. GG. Alright, Tapu Fini lead is pretty tough, and I haven't quite figured out how to play it just yet. The way I've been playing it though is switching in Galarian Weezing, because they do not know my moveset. They do not know that my charge moves both do resisted damage, because I might still be running Play Rough or Hyper Beam, which with both moves, Weezing is pretty okay versus Tapu Fini. So sometimes I've noticed they switch out of Galarian Weezing, or they even use shields, and that sets you up for success later on in the game. But I've also had matches where they stayed into the Galarian Weezing, and yeah, that's pretty tough for you. So honestly, what I would recommend in Tapu Fini's leads is maybe even staying in with Dragonite for a little bit. This is actually not that bad of a matchup. As you see, Superpower does quite a bit. Water Guns don't really do that much. They have to throw a Moonblast to really take you out. So yeah, it depends. This game though, it's looking okay for me. I was able to take out the Swampert already. Their Tapu Fini is super low. So it's not looking too bad as long as the back Pokemon is fine for me. Let the Surf go, which is fine. They do get to another move, but this should just be another Surf. And now it all comes down to what they're earning in the back. And I was expecting something like a Charizard, to be honest, as they were double weak to grass already. So they need a good anti-grass. And Charizard here makes a lot of sense. I called a bait correctly. And my opponent knows it's over, so they concede the match. GG. Okay, another Tapu Fini lead. I go into my Galarian Weezing. And this opponent decides to stay in. And in this case, you just want to farm up as much as possible. Even let them throw the surf maybe, but I didn't want to farm over 100. So this time I just threw the Brutal Swing. And they actually shielded, which is really, really good. Again, this doesn't happen every time. This time it happened. My opponent might have been afraid of a potential Hyper Beam or something, which will do quite a bit. And this is great now. At this point, I'm fine just overheating, getting in as much damage as possible to put this in a range where either my Tapu Fini or my Dragonite can deal with their Fini later. I could have potentially thrown the overheat here, but I wasn't expecting them to throw, to be honest. And it would have been double debuffed anyway. So I just let them throw the surf. Now bring in my Tapu Fini. And I should be able to knock this out with a surf and a farm down. I have to shield a potential Moonblast though. That this could be it. So I'm gonna use one of my shields here. It does end up being a Moonblast, so that's a great shield. Out comes Skuntank now. I go for the Moonblast here, and then I'm gonna go into Dragonite. I was really hoping this Moonblast would do enough to where my Dragonite could come in and farm this down before they get to the move, but unfortunately they survive at just like 2 HP, and I kind of have to shield this up. I'm expecting Dragonite to still do decent in the back, so want to shield that up. Get the defense drop, which is very bad. Out comes Tapu Fini now. Dragon Breath's really don't do a bad amount of damage, so I'm gonna... Actually, I was going to go for Dragon Claw there, but unfortunately, I throw one Dragon Breath too late, and they get to the surf, and yeah, it's just bad. So now I have to farm down, and it's a Trevenant. If I had a little bit more health here, I might have been in an okay spot, but unfortunately, I'm going to get Shadow Claw down, and yeah, one of those Dragon Claws does not do enough, and they have a shield to use on the second. Now it's all down to Fini. Can I get to the Moonblast? No, they already get to a Seed Bomb. And we get taken out there. GG. Alright. Next match, we got Galarian Stunfisk. Now, in these Steel-type leads, especially Galarian Stunfisk, generally, you just want to Superpower and dip, or even bait and then throw another Superpower and then dip. It just depends. Versus Stunfisk, I like to take the first move, because you can eat a Rock Slide, and then I go for the Dragon Claw bait. Usually, they'll shield it. Afterwards, you want to shield this Rock Slide, and if they allow you to, throw the Superpower. If they shield it, their shield's down, you can bring in your Weezing to overheat it. If they let go, you win that matchup. This time I switch it to Guzzlord. I make a bit of a questionable move here. I saw Dark type, so I throw Superpower. I'm like, that's great. But I wall this with Weezing. There was no reason to throw that move, really. But this does put the Guzzlord into a range where I can farm it down now. Oh, by the way, little detail. I made sure that Guzzlord locked out my Dragonite before sending in my Weezing. My thought process there is, the big move, the move I usually want to throw with Weezing is Overheat, which drops my attack. So ideally, I don't want to be switch locked with Weezing. So I decided, instead of switching into my Weezing, I'll just let the Guzzlord take out my Weezing so that I can freely, no, not take out the Weezing, take out the Dragonite so that I can freely bring in the Weezing and have it not be switch locked. Anyway. The Nidoqueen comes out. It's kind of awkward for the rest of my Pokemon, but they decide to catch a Brutal Swing on their Galarian Stunfisk, and this sets me up with Tapu Fini for a nice farm down. I should be able to survive Earthquake plus Rock Slide still, and farm this down all the way to get to double surf first the Queen. They throw a Rock Slide first, but I'm not shielding. We're letting that go. They're throwing another move. This feels like another Rock Slide, which it is. I think my opponent is trying to go for triple Rock Slide, but they did not reach it. I get the farm down. We're going to go straight for double surf. Nidoqueen does have one move loaded, but we can shoot it up. Don't have a second. Go for the first surf. This likely gets a shield, but we have another one loaded to throw at this Nidoqueen, and that is another GG. So yeah, Galarian Stunfisk, very, very manageable. The Registeel matchup, I sadly don't have any clips of that. I didn't face any Registeel leads myself. All the Registeels were in the back, but you want to play that very, very similar to where you're taking the first move and then superpowering. You could even shield that first move, to be honest. It's all up to you. But generally, you can let the first move go, live that, and then go for superpowers. Anyway, Cobalion lead. Superpower and dip. You get to the first superpower before they get to a move. you want to throw that basically immediately, then switch into Weezing. A lot of these Cobalion lead teams I've seen aren't very strong to Weezing in the back, it seems. My opponent brings out their Drifblim here. This is not a good matchup for Drifblim. This is not a good match for Drifblim. And if this is the team I know that was common like all Virtual League, it's a Cobalion, Drifblim, and Giratina. And my squad just does incredibly well there. I let their Mystical Fires go. Farm now with Dragonite now. If they want to come back in with Cobalion, that's super fine. Can throw another superpower here before they get to the Stone Edge. They have to shield this to want to keep their Cobalion on the field, but no, they let it go. Cobalion goes down. Out comes Giratina now. Now, this is not a super consistent matchup for Tapu Fini, but it's fine. I have 2 shields. I can definitely just double Moonblast here. At this point, I think my lose condition is them no shielding a Surf. But even that, like if they no shield a Surf, I can probably just let my Tapu go and farm all the way down with Dragonite. So that might have also been fine. But I felt the easiest way to win at this point was just to shield their Shadow Sneaks and go for Double Blast. And that should be enough to take out the Giratina. They're going to get to another Sneak now though. And if they can get to another one, then I might be in trouble. But no. Tapu, way too fast, gets to the Moonblast. This will knock out the Giratina. That's another win. Nice. Okay, GG's. Next match. Shadow Dragonite, mirror lead. I like to save a Dragon Claw here, try to catch theirs. All my own Dragonite. I think I stuttered a little bit there. Took an extra Dragon Breath from their Dragonite that I shouldn't have taken. But that's okay. Switch it into Weezing. My opponent does not throw the Dragon Claw. Instead, switches out into their Jellicent, into my Weezing. Again, actually, most of the Dragonite, I saw like 3 Dragonite leads, and I did this exact same play 3 times. And none of the Dragonite leads seem to really have a great response to Galarian Weezing, which is great. I'll take that. I'll take that. You want to try to maintain switch advantage, because you want that Tapu on their Dragonite later in order to like eat that energy. So I like to shield my Weezing here. Like Jellicent is not the worst, as you could see. It took a shield from my Weezing. Brought it into the red, so it's definitely not the worst matchup for the Jelly. But it is pretty good for Weezing. In comes Cobalion. I was considering baiting there, but I felt it might be too risky. Go for the Overheat instead. Even if they shield it, that's fine. I can just switch it to Fini now. Fini has a great matchup here. Stone Edge does do a decent chunk, but 2 of them are not enough to knock you out. The thing I am worried about, though, is if this Cobalion is able to get 2 Stone Edges versus my Fini, and they can then bring in their Dragonite to, like, superpower me. That should be enough to take out. However, then I likely just farm now with Weezing and have an Overheat for the Cobalion. I'm gonna go straight Surf here. Even if they no-shield this, that's fine. Already does enough to bring them into range where a lot of my other Pokemon should be able to knock out. They go for another Stone Edge here, I assume. Doesn't knock me out yet, though. Out comes Dragonite. I decided to just throw the Blast straight away. I knew they were likely gonna switch, but it was totally fine with me, as I do have my switch loaded, and I have a superpower. I would rather have that happen than have their Dragonite knock out my Fini there. Because then I'm coming to the awkward situation where I have to go for a farm down, and yeah, it would have been awkward. But this worked out perfectly. Alright, Greninja lead, great. Greninja, Gliscor, pivot, fine. I switch a little slow. I should have been faster on the switch there, but I wasn't expecting to see a Gliscor pivot today. So I wasn't too quick with it, and they are able to Earthquake me, which now puts me into a range where they can farm me down, and this is really bad. Yeah, you have to be ready for that Gliscor switch in immediately with Tapu Fini. If you're fast enough there, you can easily get to a Surf before the Earthquake, and if they shield your Surf, you shield their move, and if you just keep shield parity, you should always win that matchup and keep switch advantage. This case, it's not looking great though. In comes Tentacruel now. Tentacruel is a pretty bad team for the team overall, to be honest. Guys, it just does okay everywhere, but both Dragonite and Weezing definitely have a lot of play. I switch out my Dragonite into Weezing here. Remember, they have a Greninja, and my Weezing does not have a Fairy Charge move. So that matchup is not great. My opponent does not know that, though. My opponent might think I've played rough. So they're staying in with the Tentacruel now. And that allows me to get to a couple Brutal Swings. If I can knock out this Tentacruel before they get to another move, I should be fine. And I get the Brutal Swing here. Does it knock out? It does not knock out. And this is really bad. If this is a Scald, that puts me in a bad spot. And it is a Scald. This now puts me in a range where the Greninja can farm me down. They just barely get 3 Water Shurikens. I really wish they only got 2. Because now with those 3 Water Shurikens, they're just barely able to get to 2 Night Slashes in a row to knock out my Dragonite. GG there. Very well played by my opponent. I could have definitely won that though if I just had that little bit of a faster switch with my Tapu Fini. But sadly, I did not. Alright, got a support lead. Out comes Charizard. I just had to stay in a little bit for Charizard to get some Dragon Breaths in. They still do a lot of damage, and they also help me get some energy on my Dragonite. And then I switch into my Tapu Fini. Unfortunately, I have to throw a Surf here right before their second Blast Burn. By the way, Blast Burn counts. The first Blast Burn is 7 wing attacks, and then the second is 6. So you want to throw your Surf in the middle of the 13th wing attack, just before the second Blast Burn. Alright, they shielded my Surf, and they got to another move, which I did want to shield up, as I do want to maintain the switch advantage. Well, for the Moonblast now, it's a decent chunk. Out comes Registeel. This is tough. I kind of regret going into Weezing immediately, to be honest, because now I'm switch locked, and I can't clear my debuffs that easily. This might still be fine, though. I was considering baiting here. I think they're going to shield, but this is much less risky, and I felt like even if they shielded here, I was still in a good spot, because then I can bring him into a range where my Dragonite can easily superpower. So this is still fine with me. I'm going to go for my second Overheat now. I'm triple debuffed. Still does enough damage to put it into a superpower range, though, for my Dragonite. So it's fine with me. I'm going to let my Weezing go down now. Now it's all up to Dragonite. The only thing that can go wrong now is if they catch a superpower or whatever they have in the back. So I'm just going to hope they don't. I go from a superpower immediately. I want to get rid of this Registeel. It doesn't knock out their Registeel though. I bring in my Tapu to clear the debuff. Out comes Golisopod now. And it's a little scary. I know their Registeel is in 1 Dragon Breath range. So they should go down to that before they get to their charge move. But the game doesn't always work perfectly. So I'm a little scared that if they do have a charge move, they will still get to it. So I'm going to let this move go from the Golisopod. No, I'll survive. Farm it down. And I should be able to farm down a Registeel as well, even if they have a move. Yes, GG's. There we go. That was the final battle of the video. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.